literally about 11 o'clock, and so he does want me to express to you that his concerns that he's sorry that can't be here. But while this is just an overview of what's been planned, John has done an amazing job and his staff of getting this all together, so we really appreciate that. But this is just an overview of what's going on. We still need to hear your guys' opinions and concerns with what's going on. And even though we're just meeting a couple times in this process, please reach out to our office. This is just to say, these are the plans. So if you guys can help us with that, it would be truly helpful. We want to make this the best Skyway possible. So, and that's not hyperbole. This is near and dear to our hearts. Without just this, I know Councilor Goss's office is working on displacement legislation. It's in the very preliminary stages right now. Amongst some other things, expect a petition coming out to the community soon. We do want to try to change a street in Skyway to Obama Boulevard, but we need to get your guys' opinion on that. This is all very preliminary right now, but please be on the lookout for that. So I'm going to make it very brief right now, but I'm going to pass it over to John. But thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm John Taylor. I'm the Director of Local Services for King County. This is Roxana, who's going to be our facilitator today. Just really quickly at a high level, thank you for the time you spent kind of going around here. So these zoning changes, and I said this at the beginning, but other people have come in since then, they're based on a whole bunch of conversations we've had in the community since last year. We've done about 22 interviews with folks in the community. We've done 4 focus groups. We've spent time with Skyway Solutions, with Somali Community, with the West Hill Community Association, talking with them about what their concerns are for this community. And we've tried to put forward some proposed zoning changes that address everything we've heard from the community. That may be right and it may not be 100% right, but we're trying to get to address the concerns of the community in this plan. This process will go forward in this way. So Chandler sort of alluded to it. We're going to take what we heard today, and over the next month, we're going to integrate that into the plan for Skyway. That plan will be put out as a public review draft July 1st. It'll be open for a month for public comment. So you'll actually see the full plan. It'll be the written plan with all of these zoning changes, what we're thinking about to do to deal with displacement, a lot of the concerns we've heard from the community about displacement as code. And then we'll take your comments. We'll probably have one more meeting like this sometime post-July to talk through more about what we need to do. There will be a meeting during July in Skyway on the comprehensive plan and this sub-area plan. So we'll have one big public meeting in July and hopefully another one post so that we can get more input from the community. And then based on all of that, we will deliver to the council a comprehensive plan and a sub-area plan for Skyway by September 30th of 2019. At that point, the council takes the plan, and then there's a public process at the council that people still have the opportunity to weigh in on. But our goal would be to deliver to the council a plan that is as reflective of the community as we can possibly make it. So that's sort of the way this process plays out. We're going to have the planners who are manning these tables, who are the smartest people in the room, kind of walk through what they heard from people at each of these the stations, and then we're open to comments from the crowd. Before I leave you, I just want to take a moment. I would appreciate it if everyone here would thank the staff, because this took a lot of work.
Great, good morning. Once again, my name is Roxana, and I'll just be making sure that the conversation flows in the next 30 minutes. So we are going to bring let's start with the Northeast area, the planner that was at that table, to kind of synthesize a little bit about what they heard from community, making sure that we hold folks accountable for what you all heard. So if there's anything else you want to say or add to the list of the summary, please make sure that we see your hand so we can have that.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is David. Forgive my giant notes here, but I wanted to make sure I remember everything. So I was manning the Northeast area table. That's around Rainier Avenue South, so kind of right next to the Renton Municipal Airport. So a couple things I heard from people. There was some concern about adding overlay district, so that's kind of the additional development standards encouraging pedestrian orientation, so better sidewalks and kind of buildings towards the street. There was concern about what that impact on parking on Rainier Avenue. There was interest in a buffer zone kind of towards the south end, so as you get towards the city of Renton. Let's see. There was also some concern about our proposed up zone, so increasing the density kind of over in the purple on the map over there, so to the west of Rainier Avenue. Impacts that would have both on parking and on people's views of Lake Washington. There was also concern about views and property values coming from the Lake Ridge area, so a little bit further to the north. Also interest and concern about a lack of sidewalks and walking paths throughout that purple area on the map as well. And I think that's about it. Oh, and one more thing is there was an interest in better explanation for what the P suffix that is being repealed is all about.
Thank you, David. We will have central area come up next. Where was the central area table?
Hello, can you hear me?
All right.
So I have the central area in the Skyway Business District, and two concerns that a lot of people had, and they really focused in on. One is they're bringing up the map, but there's a change 6. It's a green area on the map. They're going from medium residential to high residential, and that does triple the potential for density there. A lot of people are concerned about the change that might have in the characteristics of that community and the height. And it's important to note that although it is allowing more density, it's not a drastic change to the height allowances per zoning code that's already in those places. It will allow for a little bit larger buildings in that area, though. One other thing that people touched on, and we want to really emphasize, is that we are going to put in some inclusionary zoning conditions that promote affordable housing options. So as that redevelopment or that development occurs, there's still going to be affordable housing options for the people that live here to continue into the future. Another area was that, in the 4 that you see there on the northern side of the map, there's expanding the Skyway community business, Skyway Business District, and adding in community business zoning there. And that will allow for more potential for mixed-use development, to not only service the residential uses there and promote them in the future, but also allow for more mixed uses to make it more of a cohesive and sustainable neighborhood and promote pedestrian-oriented amenities at that as well in that process. And then the last one that worth mentioning, 11, is kind of an overlay district that will address marijuana retail businesses, and it'll put a cap on the number so that it can prevent, in the future, it won't prevent businesses clustering and locating close together and having too many businesses in one area. And so that was some of the feedback that I received, and if you have any other questions, feel free to come grab me afterwards and talk to me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll bring up southwest area. Southwest.
All right. First of all, I just want to say thanks to everybody. My name's Kevin LeClaire, and I'm actually one of the sub-area planners working on this whole thing. So wanted to thank you all for taking the time, coming out, sharing your feedback with us. I really, really do appreciate it. It's kind of the whole thing that makes this thing happen, is having you come out and tell us what you think. So thank you all for coming. So I've been over here looking at the southwest area, which is the Martin Luther King Jr. Way South corridor, that commercial area where 129th comes across, some of the business areas down there. A couple things, we're talking about a rezone from community business to neighborhood business in that area, some pedestrian-oriented design requirements for those businesses, changing the zoning on MLK at that Mount Anderson site, which is the large kind of gravel pit area, upzoning that from 24 units to the acre to 48 units to the acre, and requiring that it be mixed use, so it would have some commercial down at the ground floor, and bringing the buildings up to the street. So we get the curb gutter, sidewalks, street trees, more of a walkable environment, so that really, so we end up with some more sidewalk connectivity on MLK to bring people up to that commercial business area. And then finally, the mobile home parks. We got some rules we're thinking about doing to protect those mobile home parks in the future, so we can protect the affordability and that those houses there for those folks. So some of the feedback that I was hearing from folks was that I think a lot of support actually for the mobile home park residents, and the fact that that is a real supply of good, affordable housing for some folks, and would be a real shame to see people sort of be pushed out of their homes in that area. Also, just a lot of support, I think, for the neighborhood business idea, small scale personal service and retail uses, but really wanted to see more investment in pedestrian connectivity, safety of pedestrians, slowing speeds down on MLK, and improving that environment so that it's more friendly to everybody that's maybe not driving a car at 60 miles an hour, because that's really what it feels like for most folks right now. I think in general, people feel like the upzones in the Mount Anderson area are a good idea, but want to make sure that there's going to be affordability built into those complexes, and that's kind of some of the feedback that I've heard. And feel free to step back there if you've got some other ideas and share with me anything else you might be thinking about, and follow up with us afterwards as well. If you've got other ideas that come up in the next few days, pop into your mind. My contact information is on the bottom of the little handouts that have the description of what's going on in each area, so you can reach out to me too.
Can we ask you a question?
Yeah. Question?
I heard that this area has environmental issues. What is that?
So the question is, she heard that there was some environmental issues with the Mount Anderson site. And yes, so for years it was used as a concrete recycling facility where they're breaking down concrete, and that has a tendency to create some environmental contamination. That material gets into the ground and it starts to leach into the ground. It also, because it's such a steep hillside, has some topographic challenges, what they call geotechnical issues with development, makes it more costly to redevelop. And so those issues, and then there's also rumor that there's actually a stream running in a pipe underneath the ground that would have to be dealt with by some developer. So anybody who wants to dig down in the earth in there is going to have to deal with that issue on the hillside. And that's part of the reason why we were thinking about increasing the zoning density, is to make it more profitable, if you will, and that offsets some of the cost of having to deal with the challenges with the site.
So will there be any kind of federal resources that you would go after, given that it is an environmental concern?
So the
to address
question
that?
is, are there like federal resources or some other resources? There are potentially grants that people can get from the Department of Ecology or EPA to do cleanup in certain areas. It's not something that we do as the county, as a permitting agency, but usually the developer has to go out and get those things, or they can work with, say, our Department of Local Services, and we can maybe connect them with the resources that are out there. Yeah.
That property's for sale right now, right?
It is, yeah. So currently the area that's in the yellow, most of it is for sale, and it's been on the market for quite some time, and there's been some interest in it over time, and pretty serious interest. People have been doing the feasibility studies and trying to figure it out, and we've heard from some of those folks about those economic challenges, which is what really is part of the drivers of why we're thinking about some of these changes.
With the upzoning column.
That's right.
So,
And
I'm sorry.
I was going to say also, there was some concern about potentially blocking views and stuff like that with the taller buildings. And I also heard some other comments, just because we were talking about views in the Lake Ridge and Bryn Mawr area, and that was shared as a concern about some of the redevelopment that's happening in those neighborhoods, and you know, new homes being built and blocking some of those really nice views from different people's properties. And that's something else we've got to think about and dig in a little deeper on. So
Back to that concrete recycling, is that still operating that way, or it's
no, it's basically being dismantled as we speak. There's been a long-term settlement, if you will, with the developer out there, the owner of that property. They were using it in this area kind of out of conformance with our rules, and we had to work with them. Turned into sort of a legal issue. Eventually we got it sort of settled, and it's been basically we've been dialing them down so that it could go to something else. Yep.
In terms of heights, moving that mountain was really one of the best things for the views in that neighborhood. It's been done in a long time.
Right, that's what I've heard. So, thank you.
All right, we'll bring up the Northwest area, Jay, to share what was shared at the table.
Right, so I was handling the Northwest area, which is the northern portion of Renton Avenue South, where the casino and grocery outlet and bowling alley are all located. And generally, what we're trying to do in this area was increase the size of the commercial, what we would call it like a future core area, surrounded by kind of this ring of higher density residential, and really try to build a neighborhood center at this location. The comments that I heard related to a lot of this was the majority of the comments were around small business opportunity, really trying to increase the amount of land available and support for smaller businesses to locate in those areas, make sure that when this development happens, that it happens at a community scale. Some of the other things that I heard comments about were connecting to the trail that's within the city of Seattle under the power lines just outside of the boundaries of this map. Also heard some requests from a few people for restrictions on the number of marijuana businesses as well as the number of casinos and their operation in this area. And so those are comments that we could explore and look into the feasibility and what could be done about those. And then some of the other comments had to do with more affordable housing along the bus line, just to make sure that we're locating that in a place that has good services for people. And I think that's about it. Are there any questions about this area?
We'll have some time afterwards if y'all just want to, let this information marinate. We'll bring them all back up for y'all to ask questions. The last person we're bringing up is David Dog, who's going to be talking a little bit about what happened at the Community Vision.
All right. So, as Roxana just said, I had visioning and the guiding principles. So we went over what we've collected from community members over the last few months. And the vision and guiding principles were created by community members that we met through focus groups, one-on-one interviews, and a meeting with regional stakeholders. For the most part, everybody said they agreed with the vision and guiding principles that we created. We had 3 residents that said they would like to have a little bit more emphasis on walkability and access to transit. The bottom one as well, connection to transit. So with the development that is being made here, make sure there's connectivity. And the other piece was making sure that we emphasize equity a little bit more. So we have it there, but how can we bring that out just a little bit more in a broader way? The other piece was, through the stakeholder meetings, what we heard was anti-displacement was the major concern in the community. So we came up with some strategies. So we presented the group with strategies of things that could be done. And we've asked people to put dots on the things that they're most interested in. Just about all of them came out at about 10, but the number one with 15 was the right to return requirement. So that is if developers people from the community that are displaced have the first right of purchase or rental. So that was number 1. But yeah, everything else was pretty good. We did don't support the fee in lieu program. So what that is, developers pay a fee that is applied to future affordable housing in the area. I don't have the complete details on that. You just like tell more. But it's one of those things where they can build and then they get credit for doing something later. And community members didn't really want that, so that's something that we will look at and maybe next on the list. Do I have questions? Concerns? Does this seem about right? So you guys have all seen the vision and guiding principles. There's still time to make comments on this, so I've given my card to a lot of you. If you want to send me an email with anything that you want to add or subtract, and we'll still be in the back as well. All right.
Great, thanks, David. We're bringing up Dave from King County Parks now to give just kind of overview of what they heard at that table.
Good morning. For another 10 minutes. Second, it's been said, thank you for giving up part of your Saturday to come here and to share your thoughts and insights. That's okay. I don't. All right. Well, anyway, some of you have heard about our acquisition strategy. We're trying to, King County Parks for the first time is starting to look at a community like West Hill and Skyway and identify opportunities to add more park and green space in this community. And we're certainly looking to you as neighbors and residents and community members to give us your insights and how we should proceed. And some of that is, as we just heard, making neighborhoods more pedestrian friendly. One of the comments I hear over and over again, can we put a trail under the power line? That's a great question. I think we could. We'd probably take some interesting sort of administrative procedures with Seattle City Lights, et cetera, connecting to the Chief South Trail. That's sort of one, and I hear that all the time, and I think that's a big takeaway. But what I'm working on is part of the county's new land conservation initiative, and we're trying to, it's a 30-year effort to add over 60,000 acres of new protected and usable public space throughout King County, including here in West Hill Skyway. So I want to emphasize that we have a sign-up sheet over there, and if this is something you are particularly interested in and want to stay connected to, please come and sign our sign-up sheet, and also happy to look at our aerial photograph over there and talk about some of the things we're thinking about right now. I have some properties right now that we are trying to acquire right next to Skyway Park, and generally everybody is in support of that. But I love when someone talks about the neighborhood they're living in or helps give me some insight about what might work and where. So we're very much interested in hearing what you all have to say, what your perception is on how we can proceed on a long-term strategy for adding more park space. So thank you. Any questions, I guess? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everyone. So we have a little bit of time to go into some Q&A, but also this is not the last opportunity in which community has a chance to give some feedback on these plans. Now is really the time for any questions, comments, concerns, dreams, goals, aspirations, all or none of the above. So we will have, the planners are definitely available to answer any particular questions that you have regarding any of the maps or any of the changes or proposals that you see around the room. So right now is really the opportunity to start having that conversation. I also want to encourage y'all, once again, we are here to center and build community, right, particularly around Skyway and West Hill. We also ask that you
marijuana retail as an allowed use. So in essence, what we're talking about is not allowing additional businesses to come into the Skyway Business District unless some of the ones that already exist in those neighborhood business areas went away. So there wouldn't be an additional increase in the numbers in the overall neighborhood. But you don't really have to apply that overlay to the residential areas because you couldn't locate the marijuana retail business in the neighborhood or the residential areas.
What about casinos? Can they be restricted or stopped too?
So currently there's a in that regard.
I'm curious because so there's a little bit of vague information around like affordability in terms of housing. Like a percentage will go to low income, and also what does low income mean and what does affordable mean? I heard that we're going to be using the median income of the county, and that skews really high based on the very small percentage of very wealthy individuals we have, and we in Skyway we really need that number to be as low as possible to keep our community together. So I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Sure. So very fair question. So that we do use a term called the median income, which is kind of like a sort of average of all the incomes, and we use King County as the base, kind of the baseline, if you will. We do know that Skyway West Hill already has a median income that is about 80% of what the King County median is. So that's kind of our thinking point, is that's really what the natural baseline is, and that's actually what the median home prices are like in Skyway West Hill as well. They run around 80% of the home prices of rest of King County. So in our thinking, and the reason we're being somewhat vague right now is that we want to get feedback from people about what they think. So we want to know, like, should we go deeper? You know, do you go deeply affordable? Or what percentage of the units do you require, be it a certain rate of affordability? And there's different scales as you go through that. But we also want to be really sensitive to the fact that if we put the number at a certain level and say it's too challenging for the developer, they'll go shop elsewhere for properties that they want to develop in, and then Skyway West Hill doesn't see any reinvestment at all. So it's sort of figuring out what that sweet spot is and how do we make it an incentive enough. You know, the way I put it is we want to bite into their bottom line, but not too much. So we want it to be a little painful, but we also need them to make some money or they won't do it. And that's sort of trying to figure out that sweet spot is the real trick. It's something we've got to think long and hard about. So we don't have an exact number just yet. There will be a number proposed in the public review draft. And so people will get a chance to look at that and think, well, what do you think of that number? But this is part of the reason we wanted to kind of be a little more open about it right now, is to let people tell us what they think the right number ought to be.
Great. So we have a question right here in the front.
That was my question.
Okay, that was.
When might we see something?
There's one right here.
Okay, great. Right here and then over here.
Yeah. Come to the next one.
Thank you. It was actually following up on that, and you did answer a lot of it, so I appreciate that. But I also did want to make a comment on, yes, the community, even those of us that can afford to be here, will be asking for us to be creative around that piece on affordability. We want to make sure that our seniors that are here have the opportunity to remain here. We want to make sure that our community still reflects who it is, because the housing prices in Skyway, although people may think that they're smaller or more affordable, I've actually looked at some of those housing prices, and for a 3-bedroom house to be listed at $500,000, that doesn't seem that affordable to some of our median income folks that are in the community. So I think that, yes, we do need to think a little deeper, and we do need to challenge any developer. We do want them to make money, but not at the expense of our community. So I just want to make sure we set that.
I want to say thank you for being here, and I know I couldn't afford my house today if I were needing to buy it. My concern, and it hasn't been mentioned, is I hope that you will work with King County. I love the idea of many small neighborhood businesses coming in, but I've lived in the area for 20 years, and historically it's been very difficult for businesses to make a profit, and our sheriffs they're very few. They do a great job, but I hope that you'll be working with King County so that safety and business profitability can work together.
Thanks for the feedback on both of those. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So,
So, okay, for the pot stores, does that include, because I know that they want to start passing, to have pot cafes and restaurants. Will one of those be able to be allowed?
That's a new question that I've never really, I don't know about that type of industry.
Well, I know it's because it's coming. There's been talk about
Right.
it.
If I had to put on the crystal ball and sort of the wizard hat, that would still be under the marijuana retail businesses. So it wouldn't just be, unless something drastic happened at the state level and it wasn't managed like that same liquor and cannabis board management. To us, you know, a restaurant or a grocery store is different than a store that has marijuana as their primary business. And that's a different type of store. Just like we manage some liquor stores different than we do a convenience store. Even though a convenience store still sells beer and wine, it's different than a liquor store that has just bottles of hard liquor on the shelves. That's a different type of business that we manage. So I don't know what we would do in the future, but right now I think we would fall it under the marijuana retail and it would still be managed just like that.
We have time for one more question.
I'm going to take two opportunities. When you spoke before about retail or marijuana retail stores, would there be a way to structure it so that if a non-conforming store resold and was put to a different use, that the total number of marijuana stores would be reduced?
Yes, that is the idea, that we're talking about not just capping it what it is, but we're thinking about, is there a lower number? Part of this whole conversation that we're trying to have is what is the right number that folks feel, you know, right now Skyway West Hill has 5, 3 over in the Rainier Ave and 2 on MLK. And is that too many for this neighborhood?
Yes.
Should we see less? And so,
About 5 times too many.
so,
How about 0?
so that's kind of the question. Yeah.
are we continuing to license more, or we're done?
There are still licenses available at the state level, but we're not licensing anymore. In theory, right now, someone could potentially license one in the Skyway Business District. It is community business zoned, and so it has that potential. There is what they call restricted land uses. So Skyway Park itself is a developed park and has a 1,000-foot buffer, and that takes a good portion of the Skyway Business District out of play for any property to be developed with that use on it. There was a license that was tried for on the far north end, right near where Ezel's used to be. That license has not been acted upon, but it was at that location, and it was outside of the buffer zone. Other things that would be restricted land uses, which is something else we've heard the community would like to see more of, is like daycares. If one of those gets a license, there's a buffer from that, so you can't have a store. So that's part of getting the community business area being more active and sustainable, is you get those kind of businesses in, and then that actually drives other things that can or cannot happen in the community. So, good question.
All right, thank you, everybody. Do we have any other final questions and comments? Okay, thank you. On behalf of Councilmember Gossett, Executive Dow Constein, and Director John Taylor, I want to thank you for coming to our morning session. This concludes our morning session today. You are free to stay here and ask some questions if you like. We're going to take about a 10-minute pause so the team can refresh and get ready for the afternoon session. But again, thank you for providing input to your community. And if you'd like to keep on following, you can find us at kingcounty.gov/local services. We are also on Instagram and Facebook. And on behalf of the West Hill Community Association, who did take the time to air this today, you can go ahead and send this to your friends as well. So again, thank you. And again, stick around if you like. Thank you very much.